This is Pod Populi,
podcast for the people.
Welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachel Paspan, and I am going to be your host for this episode. I am so excited to welcome one of my besties, Lily, who is going to talk to us about beauty and beyond, navigating the fashion industry. I was lucky enough to meet Lily through volunteering at the New York Junior League, and we became instant friends. And we have stayed friends over the years and have continued on our friendship journey here. So thank you so much for coming on my podcast, Lily.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I'm super excited to be here today and talk to you in the Femme Force community.
Yay. So Lily, tell us a little bit about your background in beauty and fashion. What do you do now, and what has your career path been so far?
Sure. So I've been in the beauty industry for a little over 10 years at this point. I've always been a beauty girl. While a lot of people will call it beauty and fashion, I'm very distinctly a beauty girl. Prior to graduating college, I did hold some internships in fashion, and that's kind of how I found myself in beauty, which I can go into if you'd like.
Sure. What were you did different internships. Did you always want to do this when you started out in college? You knew you wanted to go into beauty and marketing or beauty and PR. How did you come about that?
Well, actually, fun fact, I was an accounting major at Rutgers University.
Wow. That's a little twist and turn.
Right? I took AP accounting, AP economics, and AP calculus in high school. I was a math and business dork. I always loved fashion, loved beauty. I thought I wanted to be a forensic accountant.
Wow, that is a different turn.
Right? And I always had a passion for picking out outfits, grew up watching my mom do her makeup, getting ready to go out on a date night with my dad, and always loved the beauty fashion industry. Never really thought it was realistic to have it as a career. I just thought every girl probably wants to be in this industry. What makes me special? How am I going to break through? I'm not that creative in the typical sense of designing outfits or, being artistic. However, I, in college, was majoring in business, sat next to a girl in a course who was dressed fabulously. And I was like, I love your outfit. She's like, oh, I work at Nordstrom. I get a discount. And I was like, oh my God, tell me more. So she set me up on an interview. My junior year of college, I ended up working in Nordstrom. At the same time, I was borderline failing economics.
Well, we've all been there. It's not a fun course.
Yeah, and I absolutely was miserable. And I was like, what am I doing? I didn't tell my parents, but I secretly declared a communications major. Told them I was going to major in labor relations and be a labor studies lawyer. As I got a job at Nordstrom, and then that following summer, I had an internship at Ellie Tahari. And my mom was like, oh, this is interesting. You're doing a lot of fashion for somebody who wants to be a labor lawyer.
I'm sure Lynn loved that.
Yeah. And then after I graduated from college, I just thought general business, let me see fashion, beauty, see kind of what happens. And my second interview was really lucky. I always tell people, tell everybody you're applying, really tap your network. It's all about who you know. And luckily, I had a family friend who passed my resume along to the right person at the right time. I interviewed at Coty, and my first role out of college was the executive assistant to the VP of direct-to-consumer sales strategy at Coty. And it was a really great opportunity because the way the teams were structured, there was nobody under a manager level. So I really got to be everybody's coordinator. So I worked on QVC, e-commerce, and retail store development. So sell in and sell through. So it's a combination of sales, marketing, and communications. And I really got to understand how the beauty business works. So that was my first 3 years in my career, which really set a great foundation for my career and really gave me that business acumen, acumen, that'll be a funny blurb.
Acumen. I think that'll be a great blurb.
That'll be a great verb. It's a word that always comes up in reviews, your business acumen. And it's how you understand finance and numbers, which even though I don't know the word for it, I understand it because I started my career on the business side.
You know, you do. So you were saying in the beginning of your career, when you were thinking about trying to go into this industry, that you were like, what makes me special? What would get me in? So what kind of challenges did you face, in such a female dominated industry? Did you feel that you faced as you applied to these kind of jobs?
Well, I think what's super interesting and how, we know each other, and a lot of my friends outside of the beauty industry are in male dominated fields, and they deal with being the only woman at the table or breaking the glass ceiling. And I've never had to deal with that because it's always been all women for the most part. I mean, there are some men in finance once in a while in marketing, but 97% women. So it's a little bit more, say this nicely, but like it can be a little bit more catty, when you're dealing with girls, and a little more, you got to play it strategically.
Yeah, to try to get ahead with it. Do you feel like that's been a hindrance on you? Like, have you found good female mentors as you've gone around throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky to have great mentors from my first boss internal at Coty. My current role, I call myself a boomerang. I was at this company. I left for a little bit to try something slightly different than prestige beauty, dipped my toe in CPG as well as healthcare, and enjoyed it, appreciated the experience. However, came back to beauty. So, really honing in on those relationships, and like, even if you're leaving, obviously keeping the door always open. You never know when, you're going to want to, someone's going to need you, you're going to need them. One of my inspirational mottos that I was privy to when I worked on philosophy at Coty was how you go up the mountain is just as important as how you go down the mountain. It's all about grace. So
very true.
Yes, that's my wisdom for you.
I appreciate that. Did you ever feel there was a key moment in your career where you're like, this is where I'm supposed to be? This is what I want to be doing?
To be honest, I'm lucky that I feel it mostly every single day. I feel like it's an anomaly where you feel like you're in the right place at the right time, and you almost feel like you're on a bike, and the treadmills came off and you're just going, and you've got your pace down, and it's just like all happening. I would say I probably started to feel that like about 5 or 6 years into my career. I was working on a variety of beauty brands at a PR agency. And one of the brands I was working on is Youth to the People. I no longer work on it, but post me working on it, Youth to the People was acquired by L'Oreal. And while I was working on it, they had just got accepted into Sephora. So they were being sold just at Sephora, and, people loved the brand, but it wasn't as, well known. And I had the opportunity to work with the founders and really tell their brand story. We did a lot of podcasts, Women's Wear Daily type of industry typing speaking engagements, as well as, consumer profiles across the board on like In Style and, different nylon and different niche websites to really tell their brand story and get that qualitative press coverage. They were named Women's Wear Daily Breakthrough Brand of the Year in 2020, which was the prior year I'd worked on them fully and did their strategy throughout. So like to see that like come to a head with that award was huge. Especially at that time, I was probably one of the most junior people who led a brand. So that really gave me that moment of like, wow, I've actually made an impact in this industry and kind of like that light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most exciting times of my career. Additionally, at the same time, I was the US agency lead for Valentino Beauty when it launched in the US. So
That's a
that was
big
an
one.
amazing opportunity, and that's a huge one, especially with such a big brand that has a fashion house involved as well as a global team, and your US team. So there's a lot of different cooks in the kitchen navigating to bring a brand to life, especially when you're uh, jumping into a new category. They had fragrance, but they had just launched beauty.
That's amazing. And as you're in this industry and you've been going through it, do you like to explore any trends? Are there any trends that are currently in style that you're just loving at the moment?
It's interesting because the pendulum continues to swing back and forth, specifically within beauty trends. And, a few years ago, it was like the very like Glossier trend, natural skin, just embracing who you are, which I think is still very relevant from like a day-to-day perspective. However, you can express yourself through bold colors. So like, me, and I'm either El Natural, like this concealer, bronzer, a little mascara, call it a day, or I have on like a fuchsia pink lip with like metallic sparkle on top and like 2 layers of eyelashes with my hair teased when the Jersey girl comes out. So I think just waking up and kind of like there's so many different ways to go right now with the industry, and like just really leaning into like how you're feeling is kind of my vibe of like how I feel today. Like I don't think there really needs to be one way or the other. Um in terms of like trends, it's always great. I mean, it's a very interesting industry to work in,
I
specifically in
bet.
social media and influencer, because it's always evolving. And while you might have experience from a amount of years you've worked in the industry, the given that social media is always evolving, new platforms are coming out. We obviously did not have TikTok a few years ago, about 5 years ago at this
Yeah.
point, even Instagram about 10 years ago. If I got Instagram when I graduated from college, that was maybe 2012.
Yep.
I got Instagram. So 12 years ago. It's very much a younger someone who
Demographic.
is yes, and someone who's a coordinator, like who has a couple of years of experience, can really raise their hand and grow so quickly in this industry, because it's always changing. So it's not about how much time you have. It's about just kind of understanding the next thing and like being able to like see what's happening and spot it, which is really interesting. Different example, but worked with a influencer a couple months ago last year on a campaign, Campbell Puckett, who, if everybody who does Instagram and TikTok knows her as Pookie, have you seen this?
I've heard of Pookie. I have seen her things.
So her and her husband do like a fit check, kind of get ready with me. And her husband was like, Pookie's looking fire tonight. And that was a few months ago. And since then, they've completely blown up. And it's really cool. I can't take credit for it. It was a manager on my team who had presented her underneath me on my team, who had presented her to me to be like, oh, this girl is really cool. We should work with her from a paid partnership capacity. And we did. But it's really cool to see that like we were at the forefront of her a year ago, and now she's getting like E-News, like best dressed couple at like the Country Music Awards last weekend. It's kind of
Good
crazy to
for
see that.
Pookie. Love that for her. Do you feel like the role of women is driving the trends and shaping the industry, or do men have any kind of influence on it, do you think?
I think beauty is, I want to say this and I want to believe this, and maybe it's the Pisces, like the good natured in me, but especially just given social media, I really think beauty is grassroots and it comes from the consumer back. It's almost like an inverted pyramid these days, where like the consumer and the user on social media is kind of telling the brand what they want, and then the brand is adapting and creating new products and campaigns that speak to its consumer, versus the other way around, where brands are coming out with marketing campaigns and it's like tweedling down to the consumer. I really do think the pyramid has shifted given social media over the last 5 to 10 years. Specifically, though, with Gen Z, they,
More fluid.
they're more fluid. They beat to their own drum. They say what they want and they don't take no for an answer.
Hashtag Gen Z. We need to delve into them
Gen
and
Z.
we love them.
Uh-huh.
Yet we hate them at the same time.
Unless we're managing that. No, I'm kidding. And if I love all my Gen Z people, if they listen to this.
I hope they do.
You give me strength for work-life balance.
Right? They do. There are no barred holds about that. You were talking earlier about how the industry is so female dominated that it can be catty sometimes. Has there been any like specific challenges and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, so I do think that beauty has always been somewhat inclusive and more inclusive than, let's say, fashion. But as somebody who's like a 5'10" girl who has always been mid-size, some people say mid-size, some people say plus size. It's interesting specifically.
Beautiful no matter what.
When you work with brands specifically that are like a little bit more fashion oriented, like your licensed brands, like a Chloe, for example, or a Gucci that I worked on Gucci fragrance, or Mugler, where their fashion is involved and like, sample sizes and like kind of be like, ooh, like I will never fit into that.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to like own who you are and be okay in your own skin. And I mean, that goes for anybody in any industry. The more confident you are, is who you are and knowing you're good at your craft, you shouldn't let that affect you. However, beauty is obviously all about your image and how you look. So it does sometimes affect me and I try not to let it, but we all have good days and we all have bad days.
Yeah. And when it affects you, do you feel like that makes you less inclined to do the kind of work that you're doing? Or do you feel like you're in it for the long haul here and it's just a bump in the road?
I think I'm in it for the long haul. I will say that also just working on beauty, I've been able to work on a lot of brands who do amazing things for women, like Lancome, for example, and just kind of the diversity of the different brand ambassadoresses we get to work with, and all of the charity work and money they donate to different organizations and whatnot. So I've been able to work on some amazing campaigns in that sense of giving back, like Philosophy's Hope and Grace Initiative, which is all about mental health, or I launched the Revlon Live Boldly campaign in the US, which was Megan Thee Stallion and Ashley Graham, who was the first plus size model to be the face of a beauty brand. So I've been able to work with a lot of brands who empower women to be themselves, embrace individuality, and show and stand for diversity. Also working within the beauty industry, there is a lot of depth in terms of science when you talk about skincare and ingredients and your health and getting yourself screened for your yearly dermatology testing. And so, yes, so beauty has allowed me to make a difference. And that is where also my volunteer work comes in with how we've met, the New York Junior League. I think that the Junior League has been able to keep me grounded in a sense of this is what's happening in New York. This is what children are facing in East Harlem, and kind of have an understanding of like what's going on in the world and not losing myself and like, is this lipstick going to make it to the photo shoot? And how can we get it through customs? Because if we don't get it through customs, like it won't be in this magazine page for September. And like, thinking it's going to be the end of the world if that doesn't happen. And then being like, well, you and I last Saturday I'm making this up. This is a hypothetical, but it obviously happened like a year ago. Like, you and I last Saturday were working with girls who didn't know where like breakfast was going to come from on Saturday morning because they weren't at school to get their breakfast. So I think keeping everything into perspective helps, being in an industry that can sometimes be a bit superficial. And that is my long-winded way of saying that.
No, and I mean, that's such a good point though. Like highlighting the importance of how the industry can empower you in a way, but how also you have to feel empowered in yourself. Do you have any kind of advice for how you go about having such confidence in an industry that's so superficial in some capacities?
I think staying authentic to yourself and figuring out what makes you happy is really important. And it's like that airbag, the face mask analogy
Yeah.
first. What is it? Like when you're on a plane,
You have to put it on yourself first before you put it on anybody else.
And I think sometimes that, you can be in like a really busy, a lot of things happening with work and volunteering and kind of not prioritize your sleep or your workout, or just maybe it's an hour of television or doing something like a hobby that makes you happy. I think really trying to figure out what those things are and what you need from a basic needs perspective, and making sure those are met before doing other things. And obviously life ebbs and flows where you have to be more on for work or more on for volunteering, but like making sure you're staying true and grounded to yourself is extremely important, and something I struggle with, and I feel like I go in cycles of being really good about and then like kind of losing sight of it and then being really good about it. So like trying to keep that persistent.
No, I think that's so great. Are there any initiatives or more movements you would like to see with having more of the faces of these beauty products be more mid-size or plus size? Do you think we're on a trajectory to have that kind of diversity within the beauty industry, given everything with Gen Z and their openness with having such a fluid flow?
I do. And I think that almost was the movement, let's say 5-8 years ago. I think now we're seeing more men wearing makeup as normal. Like makeup is being made for everybody versus saying men can wear makeup too. It's not even a women or man thing. I also think you're seeing more representation in terms of disabilities, sexuality, gender. I do think that there is more. I think like the beauty industry has always been at the forefront of diversity, and I think they're always continuing to be.
That's awesome. So if we had to dump out your purse right now, what are the top 3 beauty items you have in them right now?
Oh, this is a very interesting, hard one. I mean, I always have a lip gloss. I always have a lip gloss or a lip balm. I mean, I have about 5 lip glosses or lip balms, and like
I
if
have
I
seen
dump
your
out my
purse,
purse
yeah.
right now, first of all, it's not a purse. It's an away tote.
That it is.
It's an away tote. And then in my makeup bag, I'll always have like a lip gloss, a lip balm, a nude lipstick for sure.
Okay.
A mascara.
What kind
An
of
eyebrow
mascara?
brush. What?
What kind of mascara? What's your
So I
go-to?
rotate. I wear a lot of different mascaras. I do love Lancome. I do work on Lancome, and I do swear by Lancome. However, other ones in my arsenal, in my makeup wardrobe, an influencer I'm friends with just nicely gave me a beauty bag of things she was gifted, and one of them was Rare Beauty, the mascara I have on right now.
Nice.
Shout out to Zahava. She's the best. No one ever gives me gifts. And like, actually, I'm lying. I get gifts. I get a lot of beauty products, but like she really hooked me up with some of her like favorites that she wanted me to try. And it's always nice to try brands that I don't work on. And I do love to go to Sephora, but when you're able to try so many brands that you have access to, it's hard to justify paying for brands that
it's
you
free,
want to try.
girl. Yeah, it's free. I would go with the free all the time. I think that's so interesting though. So 5 different shades of lipstick. We love that. And gloss.
Lip gloss and a bronze. I mean, you need always need a bronzer, because I'm from New Jersey and I need to feel like I have some color.
Some mob life aesthetics here.
Mob life aesthetic. Yeah. So for sure that, and you need mint or gum for sure in your purse. My new thing
Never
is
know.
making sure I have hand cream in my purse as well.
Okay.
I heard this in another podcast, another influencer friend. I was listening to her podcast and was like, how to have a glow up. And it was like, have mints and have hand cream in your purse. So that's something I've started to do this year, is try to keep mints and hand cream in my purse. Because it just kind of like, it makes you feel like you're that self-care moment, and you feel like you just feel ready to like stand really close to someone and be like, smell my hands and smell my breath.
That is how you do get close to somebody. You're going to get a lot of dates that way on the subway. I can already tell. So what is your ideal self-care regimen? Is it like a night at home with spa products? Is it a good face mask?
So I love to indulge.
As we all do.
You've turned me on to acupuncture.
Love acupuncture.
Acupuncture is life-changing. I go to Aura on the Upper East Side in New York City, and I see Robert. He is the man. And I love to like book a Friday night appointment with him every like 6 weeks or so, and just kind of like go in like sweatpants, get my acupuncture done, come home, drink some water, maybe order sushi, and like catch up on like Law and Order or some reality shows I might have missed during the week. That is like the ideal self-care Friday night for me. I do also get a facial every 6 weeks or so. I've been kind of bad recently about getting in because love the woman who does my facials. Gracefully Touched by Anna is her name. She's in Flatiron, but she's impossible, and you have to book like 2 months out. So it's really hard to book and then, commit to those like 2 hours, especially without being able to put makeup on afterwards or wanting to put makeup on afterwards. But I think
you got to make it a special day.
Yeah. I think, committing to those appointments and trying to stay as regular as possible and like giving yourself that time to decompress and be present is really important. The other thing the past year or so, I've been really trying to be better at is just intentionally slowing down and saying no to things, and have like planning to do nothing and just planning to give myself time to do what I want to do. And it has helped me tremendously. Shout out to my old therapist for that. It was life-changing.
No, that's awesome. I mean, therapy is self-care in itself. It's how we keep going.
Yes, therapy. I mean, all of the tools, especially being a busy New Yorker, you need all of the tools.
You got to get through your day. Well, we are wrapping up here, and I just really want to thank you for coming on and highlighting all of the things that are going on in your industry and how you take care of yourself and where you see the trajectory of your industry going. So as a final question that we're doing on the Femme Force podcast is, if you could give your 16-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Interesting question. I've heard it before. I feel like this came from Career Day. This is on the Career Day panel. One of the questions that came up at the Junior League. So I've thought about it, but there are so many. I mean, I think I would tell myself not to be too hard on myself. That if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't waste 5 minutes on it. And I heard that recently.
Wow.
And it was kind of like this whoa moment of, I think we get stuck and we harp, and then it's almost like you go back to square one, or you go back to start because you don't push yourself to just get through it. You think like, wow, I screwed up, or wow, I'm not on the right path. And then you give up on like trying to maybe push forward or move forward, instead of just taking that slight break and then pushing through it. You think maybe this isn't the direction I should be going in, or maybe I'm not good enough. And you kind of question yourself. And instead of just beating yourself up about it, being like, okay, this happened. Let me take a day, a week, whatever it is, regroup, re-strategize, and move forward. So I think being kinder to yourself is very important.
That is super important. That's a great piece of advice that we should be giving ourselves as adults too. Well, thank you so much, Lily, for coming on the Femme Force Podcast. You can listen to Femme Force Podcast wherever you get your podcasts at, from Apple to Spotify, and you can follow Lily at Lillian Ray Crone. You do that. You can follow Lily at Lillian Ray Crone on Instagram. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Rachel.
much.